Welcome to another episode of Viatorian Voices Conversations on the Way. As young adults head to college, some big questions arise and get asked many times. What do you want to major in? And then what do you want to do for a career? In college, you may try a few different majors and types of classes, and eventually you work your way to a degree and toward next steps, a volunteer program, graduate school, job applications, different jobs and roles within a career, and more. Over the course of a few episodes, we want to talk to different Viatorian young adults who are a bit further down this road, and invite them to offer some insights and reflections about how they worked through it. We hope their insights and discernment experience can benefit those working through discernments of their own. These episodes are an extension of our Viatorian Young Adult Accompaniment, a network of Viatorian-connected young adults in college and postgrad life who stay plugged into Viatorian life through our private Instagram, through regular check-in texts and DMs, through some online avenues including a faith-sharing group and GroupMe, and the friendships they sustain among themselves. To join in, request to follow at ViatorianYA on the way on Instagram, or visit bit.ly/YA on the way, all lowercase, to share a life update with us and get looped in. Today we'll talk to two young adults who are working toward careers in healthcare. While pre-medicine and pre-professional studies often track students toward medical school and a career as an MD, our guests today will begin careers in other areas of healthcare that we'll learn more about from them here. Brooke Major belonged to St. George Parish in Bourbonnais, Illinois. She went to college at St. Joseph in Rensselaer, Indiana, where she studied biology and chemistry. She continued with school at Midwestern University, where she completed a master's in precision medicine last year, and continues working toward her doctorate in optometry. She will graduate next year and begin her work as an optometrist. Grace Castellese graduated from St. Viator High School in 2019. She went on to Butler University, where she decided to undertake a 6-year program of study, combining undergraduate and graduate work to earn a doctorate in pharmacology. Grace is progressing through her 5th year now, on track to finish the 6-year program and earn her doctorate next year, and then begin her career as a pharmacist. I'm Pre-Associate Dan Masterton, and it was my pleasure to host this conversation for us. We started by talking about majors, plans of study, and the way they got started on this track in college. You'll hear first from Brooke and then from Grace. Enjoy the conversation.
So I think ever since I was a child, I knew that I wanted to be in the healthcare field. So my mom, she's also a nurse practitioner, and seeing how she gives back to her patients and the stories that she tells, I really wanted to go into something in the healthcare field. Originally, I thought I wanted to be an MD doctor. So going into undergrad, I focused my studies on biology and chemistry. Those are just the basics beforehand. And really, once I was in undergrad, that was my main focus. It wasn't until I graduated early from St. Joe, and then I was working at a pharmaceutical company. And then I looked into different career options in the healthcare field. And one day my mom was like, "Have you ever thought about optometry?" And I was like, "No." So I looked into it and I was like, "Oh, wow, like this is exactly what I want." Like, I want that more one-on-one time with my patients. I want them to have a more focused exam where it's not just me coming in and out and getting them out the door, like really understanding who they are as a person, why they're there, and what I can do.
So how did you settle on what you're going to focus on for undergrad? And how did you feel like that was going to track you toward, what you're going to do for grad school and then hopefully into a career?
Yeah, so I think it was basically like the pre-med track. So they kind of set us up with all the classes that we needed. So, from biology, chemistry, calculus, all that, they kind of just had like a plan for us. But there really wasn't any type of like pre-optometry programs at my school or anything like that. So that's why I didn't really have exposure to that. My school was primarily like just medicine, focused on medicine. So that was my goal too. And I really didn't know a whole lot about different options and paths that I could go. So it really honestly wasn't until afterwards when I started talking with my mom about different options that I could go into in the medical field.
Okay, Grace, how did you work your way toward choice for undergrad studies and then getting into the program that you're well into now?
So I did a lot of my college search with my dad. He loved planning it with me. And when we were deciding, kind of going through everything, the first thing he said was, "What are your 2 favorite classes?" Or "What are your favorite classes right now?" And I said, "Chemistry and Spanish." So then we were looking at careers that could incorporate both. And that's kind of how I fell into pharmacy, because I knew chemistry. You can either go like research or you can go teaching. There's not much of that interaction with people. And Spanish is also like, that could be anything. That's very broad. So doing that with chemistry, I was like, pharmacy. I can work with people who don't know English or struggle with English, know Spanish more so, and be that familiar face for them, especially with healthcare being so confusing. And if they're not even from the United States, they don't understand our system. I just want to be that helpful person to them.
At your school, you have kind of an unconventional course of study that kind of melds undergraduate studies into the graduate professional studies, and it puts you on a longer track. Can you talk about how you kind of took the plunge to decide you're going to go for something like that and how you worked your way through it to where you are now?
Yeah. So we started in undergrad with a couple of like introductory pharmacy classes to see if you even liked the field. And I realized with those that I truly liked it and I wanted to continue. But circling a little bit back more, when looking at pharmacy schools, I had the option to either do a fast track, which is what I'm doing, or I could do the traditional like 4 years undergrad and then apply to a 4-year pharmacy school. But I was afraid that I would get burnt out after 4 years undergrad, not commit to pharmacy school. And then if I missed out on my dream, I would be so upset with myself. So that's how I decided to do more of a fast track, because then I have the 2 years. I can see if I like it. I still have time to change even within those 2 years if it wasn't for me. But then I'm already at the school and I don't have to change schools. I don't have to meet new people. Like I already know the community. So that was kind of how I fell into Butler and their 6-year program.
Nice. I like how they give you ways to kind of dip your toe in before you make that big commitment. It's really helpful, especially to someone who's just starting college. Brooke, how did you connect the dots from your interest in healthcare and science into optometry? I know that like you had to kind of figure out grad programs. I know that you're really active in like professional membership and association, kind of like learning with peers. What are some of those pieces kind of outside the classroom that have helped move you forward toward this career?
Yeah, so I also didn't realize that optometry was a legislative profession, and a lot of like what we do is dependent on the laws in each state. So there are some states like Colorado, like where they are able to do simple laser procedures for patients that in Illinois you would definitely not be able to at all as an optometrist. But the reason why they are pushing for scope expansion is because there is a decrease in the amount of ophthalmologists. So that means that there's not enough care and access to those patients. So it's not like we don't get trained or we have to get trained and you have to get certified to do these certain procedures. But the main thing that I really like about optometry too is focusing on access to care for all patients. And it's not just about having a certain title or saying that I can do this versus that. It's still having the education and background. And what I really enjoy about it is like providing patient care to all. I really like being able to have that voice for patients who may not have that voice. So I really enjoyed that part of optometry. And also too, like people know that their limits. So there's a lot of optometrists who will not ever want to do procedures like that, or, just want to maintain to glasses and contacts. But there are those doctors that do want to do more and provide for those patients that don't have that access to care.
So it sounds like both of you have a mindset of wanting to serve people, wanting to like bring your gifts and passions into meeting the needs of people who maybe have less of a voice than they should have, or who don't know how to advocate for themselves or their communities. So as you look at this, you guys are a little different from maybe people we've talked to who are teachers or who are in campus ministry, where you're in a profession that is a little bit more lucrative and you have a chance to make more of a living than some people in other careers. But then the flip side of that is sometimes people turn to jobs like this for the money and maybe don't have their hearts in it. And so whereas like a teacher might have to sacrifice some of the financial part to find fulfillment, I think sometimes people in business or healthcare maybe have the opposite challenge. So like, Brooke, what would you say about the extent to which you're in this kind of a career path because you find it fulfilling, because you find this like vocational part is alive in your heart? How would you reflect on that as you're on the doorstep of it?
So with any, I think like healthcare profession, it's a very, very hard path. The schoolwork and all the time that you have to commit and sacrifice for it. It's definitely not easy, definitely not for the faint of heart. So people that are in it just for money, it is really sad because they don't have that fulfillment. And every time that I go into clinic, like that's where I remember my why, and having people to be able to like be grateful for the care that you're giving them and to put a smile on their face, or, you know, make a minor change in their glasses, but then they're so thankful for that. And that's what gives me joy every time. It's like, wow, like I just made a difference in this person's life, whether it be a small little thing or something big. Like maybe I was able to diagnose that they have diabetes just by looking at the back of their eye. That's what really resonates in me. And that's what gives me the strength to go every single day. And that's why I do what I do, because at the end of the day, like dealing with, and even when we graduate, like dealing with insurances and all these different things, business aspects of it, they're not easy, they're not fun, but what gets me going every single day is that interaction with the patients and being able to provide them care and make a difference in their life.
What would you say about that part, Grace, about making a good living, but still needing to bring your heart to it? How does your heart of vocation respond to becoming a pharmacist?
Yeah, I'd agree with Brooke on the fact that it's not easy. There are things that you don't like about studies, like school's hard, but then also there are things in your profession that you may not enjoy. Like we work with insurance a lot too, because doctors will prescribe meds that maybe their insurance won't cover. And so then we have to contact the doctor, we have to contact the insurance, we have to tell the patient what's going on, why they can't get their meds that day. It can cause some frustration. And so it's not always easy. Not everyone's always happy with you, but knowing that you're helping so many people at the end of the day is really what keeps me going, because pharmacists are the most accessible healthcare provider for people in our world. Like retail pharmacy, you can walk in whenever and ask whatever questions you want, and they're right there. So that also gives me joy to know that I'm helping millions of people. We're their last resource for them if they ever need anything. We have a phone number, they can walk in. We do mail orders. We just have so many options for everyone. And I just love the flexibility of that.
That's great. How would you, as you look at your kind of vocational fulfillment and the way that you feel, not just like you're doing something for a paycheck, but that you're doing something that is vocationally fulfilling, how would you look at like the prayer and the spiritual life and maybe your communities that you come from helping you along the way to get to this point? Do you remember particular things, like Grace, you mentioned your dad asking about classes, any particular things that focused or honed your discernment as you worked your way through all these steps? Grace, does anything come to mind?
Yeah. I know my Spanish professors or teachers in high school were very supportive of me. I was in the Spanish clubs and I went to Costa Rica on a trip with a bunch of kids in our class. And I just remembered like thinking to myself, I may not be the best at Spanish, but the fact that I know some helps better than knowing nothing. And so that also helped me with my vocation, like knowing that that specifically in pharmacy is what I wanted to do. But also I did turn to God a lot when I was trying to decide what college I wanted to go to, what major I wanted, because when I settled on pharmacy, I never originally thought I wanted healthcare. I was very anti-doctor, med school's too much, like I cannot handle that. But I was like, pharmacy is healthcare, but it's different. And I was like, but why do I feel that way? So I was praying to God, being like, why do I feel like this is different? Why do I want this? Because I know it's not going to be easy. And also choosing a college, like, do I want to be at Butler in Indiana? I was also looking at other schools that were further from Illinois. So it's like, what is also the path for me? Because where I end up is the community that I'm going to learn about. And so I did a lot of praying, a lot of discernment, and it all worked out in the end. And that was at the end of the day, I just had to tell myself, like, it all works out. God's got you. I'm so happy with what I have right now. And I know that this is the path that God wants for me, because I wouldn't be this happy if it wasn't what he wanted.
Does anything come to mind when you look back, Brooke, things from your spiritual life or your prayer life or from your communities?
So I would say too, like I always had my heart set on med school and going into medicine. And one day when my mom was like, have you ever thought about optometry? Like after like making that huge decision of like med school versus optometry school, I was really in like a down place, I would say, because when you have your whole heart set on something your whole entire life, it's like, well, why is this changed now? Like, why is this happening? So I did a lot of praying too. And now looking back, seeing that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And like, God had a plan, and it wasn't for me to go into med school. And that's why I am where I am today. And I'm so glad that He showed me that that's not what I needed, kind of thing. And even though that's something I wanted, like He, was that voice through my mom to say, look at something else. Like maybe, you need this. And being in it now, like it is hard too. So being able to fall back on God and pray and, help me get through this day. Like I don't want to study all this time and be stuck in the library all day long, but being able to have like those reminders from Him, whether that's through people or certain things, like He shows me that I have a plan for you. So that's really what I fall back on. It's really great too to see those reminders throughout your life, and even to look back and be like, wow, like this happened for a reason,
As you think of teenagers, students who are in college now, maybe people who are a little bit undecided about their career path, maybe even thinking back to yourself when you were a little bit younger, what would you say to a young adult who's thinking about getting into healthcare, whether they maybe do want to go to med school or whether they want to get into nursing or pharmacology or optometry or another related field? Is there anything you'd want them to know or consider? Is there anything you'd want to pass along from where you are now, kind of looking back to teenage and undergrad years? Maybe even something from your prayer life or from Viatorian community life that you would want to pass along to them, Brooke?
Yeah, so I would say find what gives you joy. And I know like throughout my entire life, it has been giving back to people. So whether that's through the church or different things of that avenue, like I always knew in my like heart and soul that my career should be focused on giving back. So those people that if they find joy in doing that, I highly suggest like going into a career where you can give back to people, because regardless of the money or anything like that, like every single day, like that's what I wanted. I wanted to go into work and know that I'm helping people and be satisfied and fulfilled. So if that is something that teenagers too, like especially love, like volunteering or giving back to their community and sacrificing their time for others, this would be a perfect career option and things to look into to do that and give back.
What would you say, Grace?
Yeah, I second what Brooke says as well. Going to St. Viator, we were required to do service hours, and I would always go above and beyond. I loved helping the community, and that was also what I realized, like I want my future career to also be like this. But some other advice would be, it's okay to realize that what you want to do may not be easy. Not everything that you do in life is going to be given to you. So your confidence may be shaken a couple times, and that's okay. But just sticking with it and remembering the why you're doing it, and also why you love it, will help you get through.
That's really good. It's interesting talking to you guys versus, I don't know, like the guys who I talk to in business, where like you study like finance or accounting or something, but then like who knows what you're going to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really wide field. I feel like for you too, it's a little more, you're going to graduate with this very specific goal. And like you have to find an employer or a clinic or an office or whatever, but then you're kind of all the way there in a way. So you two have a different, I don't want to say conviction, because those guys have conviction too, but like there's like a finiteness about it. Like you guys have more of like it's right in front of you. It's just kind of neat hearing it from your point of view.
It's funny that you say that about business being more broad, because I do think about that sometimes. And when I have too many options, I get overwhelmed. I can't. So I do like how pharmacy has more of a direction. And that's what rotations are for, also to like find for me what exactly the niche of pharmacy I want to do. But yeah, I second that, where I need direction. I like a straight path.
Yes. Yeah. More isn't always better. Sometimes it is, but often it isn't. Yeah. I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would say too, like, especially I feel like a lot of young kids in undergrad programs, they'll be like medicine. So I think it's good for people to know too that there are options, whether that's pharmacy, nurse practitioner, dentistry, optometry, physical therapy, like all of these different things you're giving back to your community and you're still providing that care. It just, you might not have the title of MD, right? But that shouldn't matter if what you're going into it for is for giving back and helping those people.
Yeah. And I think the way you described it too, Brooke, in the exam room, it's you and your patient.
Mm-hmm.
Even a dentist has a hygienist. Doctors and nurse practitioners have their medical assistants, and there's so many intermediaries in a lot of other healthcare settings. Like for you two, your patients are going to come right in front of your face, and it's very one-on-one.
That's all for this episode. We thank Brooke and Grace for their insights and pray for their continued success and fulfillment in their work. Viatorian Voices Conversations on the Way is a production of Viatorian Vocation Ministry. The Viatorians are professed brothers and priests, together with women and men lay associates, who proclaim Jesus Christ and his gospel and raise communities where faith is lived, deepened, and celebrated. In the footsteps of Venerable Louis Querbes and under the patronage of St. Viator, we strive to do everything well so that through us Jesus may be adored and loved. To learn more about our community, visit Viatorians.com or follow us on social media at Viatorian USA. Those seeking accompaniment and support in exploring God's invitation for them are invited to reach out to Vocation Ministry. Send us a DM on social media or email vocations@Viatorians.com to start a conversation. Young adults seeking to engage with the Viatorians and other Viatorian young adults can request to follow our private Instagram at ViatorianYA on the way to connect in. On behalf of Brother Peter and the Viatorian community, I'm Pre-Associate Dan Masterton. Venerable Louis Querbes, inspire us. St. Viator, pray for us. Adored and loved be Jesus.